Welcome to Opening Pathways with Tom LeNoble. It's good to see you again. I have people asking me all the time that are on my podcast, Tom, you should answer some of these questions. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. So, Tom, what sparked your first idea to start your company? Well, I like to say I retired being retired to be inspired. I had a great corporate career working at some great companies, Fortune 500, startups, you name it. And then I decided to take a little break, fell in love, got married, traveled the world, but I had more wisdom to share. So today I'm a coach, I'm a professional speaker, I'm an author, I'm the creator and host of Opening Pathways podcast, as well as the CEO of the Academy for Coaching Excellence. My idea got sparked simply from what I just said. It felt like there was more to share, more to do, another chapter. What was the moment that you knew this is my path? I started getting responses from people. One, they were happy to see me again, and two, they seemed to resonate with what I was saying. I felt like I was onto something. How did your upbringing affect what you're doing now? Did you have some role models? Well, Tom, I had this great, wonderful woman in my life, my grandmother. She was from Germany and she was beautiful. She had been an opera singer, a ballet dancer. I always remember being in her house. We'd go get these root beer floats as a kid, and she would have the music playing and she would be singing, and she knew every bird, not just by name, but by the genius, the whole thing. And she was such an inspiration to me of telling me always, you can be whatever you want to be. I was a little kid. It was incredible. My grandmother was it. Was there a pivotal style that you know, started making what you were going to have as your leadership style? Yes, Tom, there was. I've had the good fortune of reporting to some really incredible people, working with even better, reading books, going to seminars, being trained by some of the best corporations in the world. And I believe in this. Some of us read a business book and we get so moved by it, we try and emulate the author. Never works. Has to filter through you to be who you are. That's what I try and do, and it created my leadership style. I'm probably more of a servant leadership than anything because I really believe in that. I believe we're here to create leaders if we're leaders, and those leaders be able to create other new leaders. What personal risks did you take, Tom, that others never knew about? I think all of us take risks in our life, but I took risks to go and work at companies often where I had no idea what it was all about. I knew I was really bright. I knew I could learn easily. I'd proved that to myself over and over again. And I simply would take those risks to do it. I remember one day sitting at my desk at Palm. I was running global service operations, had people all over the world, my corporate staff, and the phone rang. It was a recruiter from a little company called Facebook. They were in colleges at the time. I had no idea what Facebook was. I doubt you did either at that time. Well, I kind of said thank you and hung up and got a call saying, I referred you there. Maybe you should talk to them. Well, eventually I did, and I went to work there. It's a great story. You can hear it on one of the other podcasts that I'm on. But the thing about it that was the big risk is I went from a corporate job with an office traveling all around the world to an unknown startup. Something about it just said, do this. Well, I got there, it was wild. Everybody was young enough to be my child. That was a risk. What's been the biggest turning point in your company so far? Another great question, Tom. Thank you. The biggest turning point for me was when I realized I needed to use the energy of support. I could try and do this all by myself, which was going to take forever and be a lot of hard knocks, or I could build a team around me. I built a team from marketing to PR, COO, and other people that help source this very podcast you're listening to, made all the difference in the world, let me move forward faster than I would have ever thought. I'm so grateful I did that and know that the energy of support is so important. I'm interested to know, what did your early days teach you about trust? That's an interesting question. I think that those of us that can be a wee bit of a perfectionist and that we've made it on our own, we feel like we did it all ourselves, the ability to trust others to know that they are in your court and they will do exactly what's needed for you. I have this team around me and I love them all. I've introduced them all, and now they're like protectors. They actually get together and talk about it, and then they tell me what I'm going to do. If you know Tom LeNoble, that doesn't happen too often, but I learned to trust them. I learned that they know their craft better than I do. I know Tom LeNoble better, but they know their craft better. What a team we make. When the stakes are high, Tom, how do you make decisions? Well, I try and do everything I can to make the right decision, to analyze things, to do the background, and sometimes you just need to make decisions and move forward. So my decisions range from just that. I make a decision and go with it. I listen, I use what I know, and I go with it. And other times I tap into this wonderful team I have and I do a little bit more. And every now and then, sometimes I weigh back and forth, weigh the options before I make that decision, which even leads to sometimes no decision. How do you, Tom, decide to what to hold on to and what to let go of it as your work evolves? I've learned that if you just listen to yourself and know yourself and use wise people, back to that energy of support again, you'll know. Sometimes things just move and they flow. Sometimes they take a little extra work. Sometimes you need to tap into your network or your tools or something. And there's other times you just know, let go of this. Even sometimes when you put a lot of work into something, you can still learn from it, but it just isn't worth carrying it forward. You had another idea that something was better to do and try that. What impact are you most proud of? Not necessarily professionally, but personally. That's another great question, Tom. I think about this and I have to tell you a story. I was sitting at my desk one day, and this was 20 years later from when this happened, and I got a message from someone. And this person told me how much I had impacted their life. We had this training program, a training class starting, and it was way back when I was at MCI so many years ago, and I had no full-time slots. They were full. I had a candidate that was great. All I had was part-time positions. She needed a full-time position. Well, the day before the class started, somebody dropped out. I had that full-time position. I called her up and I offered it to her knowing childcare, all the challenges that were going to come when I said it. She came through. I gave her a chance. She gave us a chance. Well, 20 years later, this Facebook message pops up. I thought that name looks familiar. And it was that person telling me how much that changed their life, that they had a six-figure position today, and it all started with that one position that the chance was made to get her start. Those things are so rewarding. I love things like that where you help others, you support others, you give people a chance, just like people have done for me. And to watch that happen is the best thing in the world. I even trust when I don't know what happens that it's happening. Tom, what values are non negotiable in your organization? Things that you just don't compromise on. You know, I don't compromise on things like integrity, honesty, being willing to listen to others. And when I say listen to others, I mean really listen. Often we listen for how we're going to respond instead of listening to what the person is saying to us. You know what? They know it. Trust yourself. You'll be able to respond appropriately. Tom, what's the boldest vision for your company in 5 years? I think about this a lot because I'm a coach, I'm a professional speaker. I got this book coming out in the fall, October, but I'm not supposed to say that. And I'm so excited as how I see what's going to happen with these things coming together and feeding each other. I love this idea that these things are going to feed each other, make each other grow to be even better, and turn my brand into something really, really great. I'm looking forward to that as it unfolds. It's already unfolding. The book launch has started, the promotion for it has started, my coaching practice is going well. I'm speaking, and my podcast has been recognized by US Business News magazine, which really felt good. I love how these things are growing and coming together. The best part is I just trust it. I just get out of the way and believe that it's going to happen and just let the days unfold, give it my best, stay in there, and I just know it's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out. May not look exactly like I thought it would, may not happen on my timing, but I trust that it will or something better. What shifts in tech right now are really lighting you up, Tom? I know the AI revolution is here and is so controversial. I talked to somebody the other day that's just digging her feet in. I'm not going to do it. I'm a writer. I know how to write. I don't need this. And then other people that just scaling forward. I get to interview tech CEOs, a lot of them in AI, right on this podcast. And it's fascinating all the niches, all the applications that are happening for AI, from healthcare to psychology to writing code, you name it. And it's just unfolding. So there's this, kind of chasm in between of people trying to jump in or not jump in. Well, I jumped in. I'm certainly not all the way in yet, but I've got my toes in there and trying to stick a foot in there because the technology is the way it's going to be. It's evolving, it's going to happen. And this is the big one. I remember back in the day when the first fax happened and we all thought it was magic. And then email. Wow, did email change our lives as much as today we're like, what about that inbox? And then went on to other things from, the internet, social media. Look at all that's happened. And AI, I think it's one of the biggest things we've happened. Is it going to evolve? Is it going to change? Absolutely. Be ready for it. Tom, if your younger self were listening to this podcast, what would you tell him? Tom, that really hits home as this book's getting ready to come out. I'm spilling a lot of my secrets in this book, a lot of it from my early days. And I can see that little boy, and I would tell him just hang in there, believe it'll be okay, things will get better. Things weren't always easy. When I grew up, I wasn't the worst, but we didn't have a lot. We had a lot of love. And once I got older and I started realizing, boy, this situation doesn't look like other people's situation, I would remind him just to hang in there because sometimes we can't see what's ahead. I wouldn't want to. And everything that's happened to me on my life's journey has made me who I am today. And I would look back and tell that little boy, hang in there. You're going to be really, really surprised one day. What's the boldest move you haven't taken yet, Tom? I have two. I want to do a TED Talk. So, anybody out there that's listening, please know it, hear me loud. I want to do a TED Talk. And next year, sometime, I'm looking at how I take all this work I'm doing, and believe it or not, I'm interested in turning it into a one-man show. My book, My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels. If you can even just let your imagination go wild, it's going to be great. I've sketched it out. I need a real writer that I've got somebody that's going to help me. But that's one thing I really want to do. TED Talk and that one-man show. What's the quietest, most powerful lesson you've learned on this journey of yours? Patience. I can remember as a little kid, even as a big kid, maybe even as an adult, my mother saying to me, "You're so impatient, that's going to get you one day." Well, she wasn't all right, but she was right. I really needed to learn patience. So I would say the thing that's been a powerful lesson to me is being willing and knowing when, really discerning when it's time to push ahead and when it's time just to sit back and let something evolve, to have patience. If you could tell somebody that's just starting on their path, a new leader, maybe somebody that's just starting about thinking about being a coach or even a speaker, if they were just on their path getting started, what would be your words of wisdom? I would tell them to not be surprised as once they started that their mind might change about what they want to do. I would tell them to be open, to really learn from others, and to ask for what they need. So many of us try and do it alone, and we just don't step out there and take the chance to ask for the support of others. I know you've heard me say that a lot, but it's really true. We forget that there is a group of people around us, typically those of us that support others, forget that they can support us. I encourage you to know that. Use the support of others. Thank you, Tom. It was great having you here today. This has been a lot of fun, Tom to Tom. I appreciate you being on Opening Pathways and telling us about everything you're doing. Where can people find you? You can find me at my website, tomlenoble.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. The best place to find me soon, though, is going to be in your local bookstore. I hope you'll buy my book and read it. People ask me all the time about the title, so I'll say the same thing to you. If you want to know about the heels, buy the book. Thank you for having me today. Thank you again, Tom. And to my viewers, this is Opening Pathways with Tom LeNoble, and I'll see you next time.